Hey, I'm Scott, and welcome back once again to my very humble backyard golf setup. So in this video I want to cover the setup position. So again, I will apologize for the traffic that'll be running by here now and then. You might hear that in the video. I live in an urban area here outside of DC, so it is what it is. In any event, let's get to the setup. So starting out, basically going to have our feet shoulder width apart. Now, the shorter your shot, the more narrow your width might be with the shot, and the longer the shot, whenever you're setting up with a driver, you want some more stability, so you go with a little bit wider stance. In general, we're going to be about shoulder width apart. I also prefer to have, rather than my feet pointed straight forward, there's very few players on tour that do this. Jim Furyk would be one of them. I prefer to have the toe on my front foot at least off to about 30 degrees, and then with the right foot it's probably between 5 and 10 degrees pointed outside. This gives you more ability to rotate the hips because it gives you more range of motion with the hips and the knees. Now, when it comes to how much bend at the waist, it really depends on the length of the club that you're about to hit. So your standard setup is going to be like this. We want to bend at the waist first, let our arms hang down naturally below the shoulders, and then get a little bit of a flex in the knees. So try and keep your back reasonably straight, and you'll notice I have a little bit of a rounded back. That's due to my lack of good posture. But ultimately, my lower back is relatively flat. So you have that position there. The longer the club is going to be, the taller that you're going to stand for the shot. Now, when I'm setting up to hit a shot, I'll come up behind the ball, get my grip on the club, set the club behind the ball, and then set up appropriately, knowing that my arms are hanging basically right down below my shoulders for a shorter club. For the longer club, I'm going to be standing up a little bit taller. I want to have some room between my body and the top of the grip. I don't want the hands in too tight. I don't want them out too far. If I'm standing too hunched over, I'm going to have to pick the club straight up. That gets me off plane right away. If I'm standing too tall, I'm usually going to be forced to pull it straight inside. Again, I'm going to be getting the club off plane, which we'll discuss in a future video. So those are kind of the rules of the setup. Again, nice athletic stance is basically what you want to think about. Feet about shoulder width apart. Modest bend at the waist. Just let the arms hang down naturally below the shoulders. With the length increasing with each club up through your bag, you're going to stand up a little bit taller. And with the ball position itself, the longer the club, the more forward in your stance the ball is going to be. So I basically set up with my short irons right in the middle of my stance, and then up through about the 5 iron, I'm going to keep that position, that ball position. And then as we move forward in the stance with the longer clubs, I'm going to have the ball a little bit more forward in my stance. That lets me get the ball up in the air a little bit more easy, and also keep it a little straighter as far as my swing path goes. And then with the driver, you basically want to have the ball about half the ball above the top of your driver. That's the ideal height. I see players tee it Even really good players tee it a little bit lower than that. Very few will go much higher than that, except maybe some of the long drive hitters that are competing in a long drive contest with a lot less loft on their club than the typical player like you and me. And this is kind of how my setup looks for the driver. Now obviously, depending on your typical ball flight, if you're able to keep it relatively straight most of the time, then you want to have your feet, knees, and hips parallel to your target line. The tendency is for many amateur players to want to hit a ball right to left, so they'll close off the stance. They'll be aimed off to the right of their target line if they're a right-handed player. And then some other players might have a more open stance. Just depends on their level of comfort. But ideally, you want your feet, knees, and hips lined up parallel to your target line. So those are your thoughts on the general setup. If you have any questions, feel free to shoot me an email at scottcolegolf@aol.com, and then check out the website scottcolegolf.com. All right, thanks for watching, and we'll see you in the next video.